buy or lease your cars?
Kevin, I've done both. What about yourself?
You know, I've done both too, but as a business owner, I like the opportunity to take that tax deduction for those lease payments.
That's definitely a benefit. I'll tell you, there's a gentleman out at Gordon Jaguar that could really give us the skivvy on leasing and buying. Why don't we head out there, okay?
That's great. I'm looking forward to meeting Jim Rady. He's a really well-known guy in town, and he's just thoroughly knowledgeable about this topic.
Absolutely. We're on our way. Jim, as you know, we are a senior community. How would leasing affect the decisions that our viewers would make?
Well, I think walking through the door, the seniors walking in are fully convinced to pay cash for a car and buy a depreciating item and put their cash forward for many reasons. I mean, the generation that they grew up in, if you can buy it and own it and not take it out on credit, that's the philosophy when they come in here. I think when they sit down and they trust somebody, if they've had a relationship for 5-10 years and they get into a conversation, you know, I use the analogy, if your stockbroker called you tomorrow and said, hey, I've got a $60,000 investment, give me that $60,000 today, and I'll guarantee it's worth $25,000 in 3 years, you'd probably hang up. And in reality, an automobile depreciates at that kind of factor, especially when you're talking about luxury vehicles, unless you know what you're doing. There's argument to say, why own a depreciating item? Lease a depreciating item. So when people do walk in here, I think of our age group of 60 years of age and older, they have the mindset to come in, what is the purchase price? What am I getting for my car? I want to be able to strike a check. If I can afford it, if it fits into my preconceived budget, I'm going to buy the car. When they sit down and take a look at the options and say, okay, to have the extra 40, 50, 60, in some cases $100,000 in the bank and not put it into a depreciating item, take a look at leasing versus buying. And today buying is attractive as well because you have these interest rates that even if there's no special, it's 1.9 for a good quality customer with good credit rating. So they take a look at retail purchase at a very, very low interest rate, using their money to earn money somewhere else. And then they get introduced to leasing at all these luxury companies. And they say, look, if you want to have a vehicle and not have to worry about purchasing an extended warranty, be able to change the model every 3 years, which is great because technology, safety items are all evolving on these automobiles. Every 3 years, have yourself a new car. Have a fixed monthly payment that is much less than if you were to go out and spend $60,000 and try to amateurize and figure out what a 60-month purchase would be. You would find you're 35-40% less expensive on a lease with very little money down. It now becomes a heck of a lot more attractive.
Jim, are there any gotchas that we should be aware of at the termination of the lease?
If you're diligent and you take care of your car, if you set up the mileage accordingly, knowing what your driving habits are, and a good idea is to take a look at the vehicle that you've just owned for 5 years. If you have 50,000 miles on it, over a 5-year ownership period, your average is 10,000 miles a year. If you base the lease on 10,000 miles a year, the payment comes down. If you base the lease on 15,000 miles a year, the payment's a little higher, but you get awarded being able to drive 15,000 miles a year for 3 years or 45,000 as opposed to 30,000.
Sure.
But if you drive 30,000 and people say, oh my God, I went over a couple of thousand miles, don't panic. It's 30 cents a mile. So if you're 3,000 miles at 30 cents a mile, it's $900. And a lot of times, and we do this all the time, if a consumer comes in here, they're at the end of the lease, what am I motivated to do? Lease them another car or sell them another car.
Sure.
If a consumer looks me in the eye and says, look, you know, I have a little scratch and a chip on my windshield and I have 3,000 to 4,000 miles over my limitation, I want to make sure I don't pay for any of that if I'm going to do business with you. The dealer then is put the burden of, well, I could probably fix the car a lot easier than he could. And I probably could absorb the $300, $400, $800 worth of mileage fees and not charge the consumer and put that into writing so the next consumer can walk away from the lease, even if he has a couple of scratches, even if he's a little high on the miles, and know that he's not burdened with that bill that might be coming in 30 days. So you can put things into place to secure yourself that you're never going to be in that opportunity get surprised on a lease.
Jim, you are a fabulous salesman. This has been a pleasure. We thank you so much for your valued time, sir.
You're welcome.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Thank you.
This is Kevin Dauphiny and Bill Campbell for Hard Earned Money and Anthem Alive.